Welcome to Honeybee. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Real stories of love, lies, and betrayal, where every truth stings. Let's begin. When I married my wife, I never imagined I'd one day be sitting in our quiet living room, staring at the same woman who once promised me forever, realizing I didn't even recognize her anymore. 25 years gone. A lifetime of trust, laughter, and growing old together, shattered over something I can barely understand. Her name is Linda. When we first met, she was everything I'd ever wanted, graceful, funny, a bit stubborn but full of life. We were that couple who people said made it work. We weren't flashy or dramatic, but we had something real. Or so I thought. We built a home together, raised 2 children, celebrated milestones, and faced hardships hand in hand. I never believed something could break us. But what I learned is that even the strongest foundations can crack when someone forgets what truly matters. It started subtly, the kind of change you don't notice right away. At first, it was her phone. She began guarding it like a treasure. Before, she'd leave it lying around. Now it was always face down. She'd get messages late at night and smile faintly before replying. When I asked who it was, she'd say, "Just a friend from the gym." Linda had started going to the gym more often after our kids moved out. I thought it was great. She wanted to feel good, stay active. I encouraged her, but soon it became an obsession. She'd come home later and later, saying she stayed to chat with the girls. Then the wardrobe changes came. Dresses that were tighter, shorter. Lingerie I hadn't seen her wear in years. I told myself not to overthink it. Maybe she was just trying to feel youthful again. I wanted her to have that. But deep down, something felt off. One Friday evening, she came home glowing, as if she'd just had the best night of her life. She poured herself a glass of wine and hummed a tune. I asked about her evening, and she told me about a new group of friends she met through her gym, couples who liked to keep things interesting. I didn't think much of it then, but that phrase, keep things interesting, would soon echo in my head in the worst way possible. A few weeks later, she mentioned they were hosting a private party. She was vague, saying it was just a fun get-together with like-minded adults. I wasn't invited. She said it was for members only. That struck me as odd. We'd been married for 25 years. When did we start keeping separate circles, especially secret ones? Something inside me told me I needed to know more. That weekend, she told me she'd be spending the night at her friend's place because it would be too late to drive back. I nodded, pretending I believed her, but as soon as she left, I felt an ache in my chest that I couldn't ignore. So I decided to see for myself. I drove to the address she'd left on the counter, a large house in a different part of town. As I parked a distance away, I noticed several cars lined up. Music drifted out from the windows, mixed with laughter and something else, the kind of sound that makes your stomach twist. I didn't go inside. I didn't have to. What I saw from that window was enough to burn into my mind forever. Through the glass, I saw Linda, my wife, the woman who once cried tears of joy when I promised her eternal loyalty, standing in the arms of another man, surrounded by others doing the same. It wasn't a regular party. It was a swingers' gathering, a place where vows meant nothing and loyalty was traded for thrills. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. My heart pounded as I watched her laugh, that same laugh that used to belong to me, as if the last 25 years meant nothing. I didn't make a scene. I didn't burst in or shout. I just stood there, invisible, realizing that the woman I'd loved had already left me long before that night. When she came home the next morning, she smelled like perfume that wasn't hers, her hair slightly messy. She kissed my cheek and said, "Good morning," like nothing had happened. I looked at her and wondered how people could live 2 lives so seamlessly. I didn't mention what I saw. I wanted to hear her version. Days went by, and she acted as if everything was normal. She made breakfast, texted on her phone, laughed at sitcoms beside me on the couch. But I could feel the distance, that invisible wall growing between us. I knew she was going to more of those parties. Her gym friends became her new family, and I was just a husband she came home to when the music stopped. The moment I decided to confront her wasn't planned. We were sitting in the living room one night, watching TV. She got a message and smiled at her phone, biting her lip. That small gesture, something I'd seen her do when we were dating, broke me. "Who's that?" I asked quietly. She hesitated. "Just someone from the group." "What group, Linda?" She sighed, annoyed. "Oh, for God's sake, Mark, don't start. You wouldn't understand." "Try me." And that's when she said it. The sentence that would change everything. "Mark, you're just too safe. Too predictable. We've been together so long that I feel like I'm suffocating. I just wanted to feel something new. It doesn't mean I don't love you." I stared at her, not recognizing the woman in front of me. "So, you decided to throw away 25 years to feel something new?" She looked away, guilt flickering across her face. "It's not like that. It's just fun. Everyone there is married. It's about freedom." "Freedom?" I repeated, trying not to laugh. "You call betraying your vows freedom?" Tears filled her eyes, but I couldn't tell if they were from regret or fear of being caught. I didn't shout. I didn't beg. I just stood up, walked into our bedroom, and sat in the dark for a long time. The silence was deafening. My hands trembled as memories of our wedding day flashed before me. Her white dress, the way she squeezed my hand when we said our vows, how she promised to choose me. Always. That night, I barely slept. My mind kept replaying her words. Too safe. Too predictable. After all I'd done, working double shifts, building our home, supporting her dreams, that was what I'd become in her eyes. A background character in her search for excitement. In the days that followed, I acted normal. I didn't argue, didn't accuse. I made her breakfast, kissed her on the cheek, even asked about her day. But behind that calm smile, I was already making my decision. I started meeting with a lawyer discreetly. I gathered documents, financial records, and anything that would make the separation clean and fair. Our kids were grown, so there wouldn't be custody battles. Just a division of a life that once felt unbreakable. Linda didn't notice. She was too caught up in her new friends, always distracted, always giggling at messages she quickly deleted. I stopped asking where she was going. Instead, I watched her dig her own grave one lie at a time. Then came the final straw. One Saturday evening, she came to me, her tone unusually sweet. "Honey, there's another gathering next weekend. It's a couples thing this time. You could come with me. Maybe it'll help you understand." I looked at her, stunned. "You want me to join you in that?" She smiled nervously. "It's not what you think. It's just exploration. We'd be together, but open-minded." That was when I realized she was gone completely. Not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. The woman I loved no longer existed. She'd been replaced by someone chasing thrills in exchange for loyalty. I didn't respond. I just nodded and said, "We'll talk about it later." That night, I packed a small bag, placed it in my car, and drove to a hotel nearby. I needed distance, not just from her, but from the life that was collapsing around me. I spent that night replaying every moment of our marriage, the good, the bad, and the lies I hadn't seen coming. By morning, I made my choice. I wouldn't yell, fight, or try to win her back. I would simply step away. When I returned home, she was in the kitchen, humming while making breakfast. She looked up and smiled as if nothing had happened. "You're up early," she said. I looked at her one last time, memorizing her face, the same face I once kissed goodnight for decades, and said quietly, "Linda, I'm done pretending." Her smile faded. "What do you mean?" "I know everything," I said softly. "The parties, the lies, the people you've been with. I saw you that night." Her hands froze. The color drained from her face. You followed me?" "I didn't have to. The truth has a way of showing itself." She started crying, rushing toward me. "Mark, please, it's not what you think. It was just a mistake, just curiosity." I took a step back. A mistake is forgetting an anniversary, not betraying your husband for strangers. Her voice cracked. "Please don't leave me." But it was already too late. As I walked out of the room, her sobs echoed behind me. I didn't look back. I couldn't, because the moment I did, I knew my resolve would crumble. Outside, the sun was rising, warm and golden, yet it felt cold to me. 25 years, and all it took was one night for her to destroy it all. Still, deep inside, part of me wished she had loved me enough to stop herself. I didn't go far that morning, just drove aimlessly until I found myself parked near the lake where Linda and I used to take the kids when they were small. The air was calm, the water smooth like glass, but my heart felt like it was being torn apart piece by piece. It's strange. After 25 years together, you'd think the end would come with fire and fury, with shouting and slamming doors. But it didn't. It ended quietly, almost peacefully, like a candle finally burning out. I stayed at that lake for hours, watching the sunlight dance on the surface. Every memory of our life together replayed in my mind. Our first date at a small diner, her nervous laugh when I proposed, the way she'd fall asleep on my chest while we watched old movies. Those moments used to define my life. Now they just hurt. Later that afternoon, I checked into a small motel on the edge of town. I couldn't bring myself to go home. I sent a short message. I need space. Don't call me. Then I turned off my phone. For the first time in decades, I slept alone without knowing what my wife was doing or where she was. And as painful as it was, a part of me felt something unexpected. Relief. The next morning, there were dozens of missed calls and messages from Linda. Some were apologetic, others desperate. Please come home. Let me explain. We can fix this. Then, as the hours passed, her tone changed. You're overreacting. It didn't mean anything. I didn't respond to any of them. Over the next few days, I stayed silent. I went to work, came back to my motel, and sat in the quiet, trying to understand where it all went wrong. People always talk about midlife crises like there's some kind of joke, a sports car, a new haircut, a bad decision. But when that crisis involves betrayal, it hits like a train. After almost a week, Linda showed up at my workplace. I saw her through the glass door, her eyes red and swollen, her expression broken. She waited until my shift ended and followed me to the parking lot. Mark, please, she said softly. Can we talk? I didn't say a word, just unlocked my car and sat inside. She hurried to the passenger side and slipped in before I could stop her. She looked smaller somehow, fragile, not the confident woman I'd known. I made a mistake, she began, her voice trembling. I don't even know why I did it. It was stupid, reckless. I wanted to feel wanted again. I stared straight ahead, gripping the steering wheel. You were wanted, Linda. You were loved every single day for 25 years. You just stopped noticing. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I didn't mean to hurt you. But you did, I said quietly, and you can't undo it. She reached out, placing her hand on mine, but I pulled away. That simple gesture felt wrong now. Mark, please. I'll quit that group. I'll never go again. I'll do therapy. Anything you want. Just don't give up on us. I looked at her, really looked, and for a second, I saw the woman I fell in love with. But that image faded quickly, replaced by the memory of what she'd done. You threw it all away, Linda. I whispered. For one night, for a feeling you can't even describe. I was lonely, she said desperately. You were always working, and after the kids left, I felt invisible. Everyone around me seemed to be having fun, living their lives, and I felt like I was fading. I wanted to feel alive again. Her words hit hard, because as much as they angered me, I could see the truth in them. We had grown distant after the kids moved out. I'd focused on stability, keeping our finances steady, maintaining a home, while she wanted passion and spontaneity. I thought being a reliable husband was enough. Maybe in her eyes it wasn't, but that didn't excuse betrayal. There were 1,000 ways she could have spoken to me, reached for me, but she chose to reach for strangers instead. I would have done anything to make you happy, I said, but you didn't give me the chance. You chose secrets over honesty, and now there's nothing left to fix. She sobbed harder, clutching her chest as if the pain was physical. Please, Mark, don't say that. I love you. I've loved you my whole life. Then why didn't you act like it? I asked. The silence that followed was suffocating. After a few minutes, I started the engine and said quietly, "Go home. Linda, take some time to think about what you really want. Because I already know what I want, peace." She didn't argue. She just nodded, tears streaming down her face, and got out of the car. I watched her walk away, shoulders trembling, and it felt like watching the last chapter of the long story close right in front of me. That night, I drove home. The house felt like a museum, filled with traces of a life that no longer existed. Family photos lined the walls, smiling faces frozen in time. I sat on the couch and looked at our wedding picture. We looked so young, so sure of ourselves. I picked up the photo, stared at it for a long while, then placed it face down. A few days later, I met with a lawyer again. I filed for divorce quietly, without drama or bitterness. It wasn't revenge, it was closure. Linda called constantly when she found out. She came to the house, left notes, even begged at my doorstep, saying she'd change, that she'd shut everyone out from her old life. But my trust wasn't something I could rebuild with words. One evening, she stood outside in the rain, crying, her voice breaking as she said, "Please, I can't lose you. You're my whole world." I stood at the door, watching her, my heart aching but my decision firm. "You lost me the moment you stopped valuing what we had." Then I closed the door gently, not out of anger, but because I knew if I let her in again, I'd never truly heal. The weeks that followed were difficult. Loneliness has a way of creeping in quietly, especially after decades of routine. I'd wake up expecting to hear her humming in the kitchen, only to be met with silence. I'd reach across the bed and find emptiness. But with that silence came something I hadn't felt in years, clarity. I started focusing on myself. I began walking every morning, rediscovering the peace I used to find in nature. I'd picked up old hobbies, woodworking, reading, cooking for one. The loneliness didn't vanish overnight, but each day it hurt a little less. I reconnected with old friends, people I had drifted away from while being consumed by marriage and work. They didn't judge me, they just listened, and that helped more than I can explain. Months passed. I finalized the divorce quietly. Linda didn't fight it. She signed the papers with trembling hands and whispered, "I hope someday you can forgive me." I didn't answer her then, because forgiveness isn't something you can force. It's something that comes when the pain fades, if it ever does. After the divorce, I sold the house. Too many memories lived in those walls, laughter, birthdays, Christmas mornings, and lies. I moved into a smaller home near the lake, where I could watch the water every morning. Sometimes, on quiet evenings, I still think of her, not with hatred, but with a bittersweet ache. She was my wife, my best friend, my partner through half my life. But she was also the one who taught me the harshest lesson of all. Love isn't just about passion or excitement. It's about loyalty, even when life feels dull. About a year later, Linda reached out again. She sent a letter, handwritten, not typed, filled with remorse. She said she'd been going to therapy, that she'd realized the emptiness of what she'd chased. She wrote that the freedom she'd wanted had turned into loneliness. Most of the people from that group had drifted away, and she was left with nothing but guilt. She ended the letter with, "I don't expect you to come back. I just hope you're okay. You were always the better person." I folded the letter carefully and tucked it in a drawer. I didn't reply, not because I hated her, but because some chapters aren't meant to be reopened. Forgiveness, for me, came quietly, not through words, but through acceptance. I realized that her choices didn't define my worth. They defined hers. Life slowly became peaceful again. I learned to enjoy solitude, to find joy in simple routines. Morning coffee by the lake, the sound of rain on the roof, the occasional visit from my kids. They knew about what happened, though I never spoke ill of their mother. I just told them, people make mistakes, but sometimes those mistakes change everything. They visit her too, and I'm glad they do. I don't want them to choose sides. I want them to learn what I did, that even broken things can teach you something valuable. Sometimes, when I see couples walking hand in hand by the water, I feel a pang of nostalgia, but I also feel gratitude for the strength I found, for for the chance to rebuild. I don't know if I'll ever fall in love again. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. But one thing I do know, I'll never settle for half-truths or borrowed loyalty again. Linda once told me that life is short, and we should live without regret. I think she was half right. Life is short. Too short to live with someone who doesn't cherish you the way you deserve. And though she's asked for forgiveness many times since, I think I've already given it, silently, in the way I chose peace over revenge, healing over bitterness. But forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. It means understanding that some people are meant to be lessons, not lifelong partners. Now, every morning when the sun rises over the lake, I take a deep breath and remind myself, endings aren't always tragedies. Sometimes they're second chances in disguise.